I'm Suzanne Murdoch and welcome to Series 3 of Powering Productivity. Each episode I explore the energy that really genuine connections, expertise and being in your best flexible working environment can bring to you, your business and your whole life. So let's get started. Welcome, I'm your host Suzanne Murdoch and today I'm delighted to be joined by William Redpath, Founder Director of Manabu Learning and chapter lead with Grow Remote for County Down, Northern Ireland. So William's expertise is very much around learning and development, and he comes at this from quite a creative angle, realising potential unique skills and cultures that already exist, and very much moving away from just focusing on plugging those gaps. And he uses an asset strength-based approach through digital games and simulations, quoting, "We all have enormous potential, it's just about realising it." William's also spent time in telecommunications. He's a qualified youth worker and facilitates learning through development, learning and development through coaching and mentoring. Now, William, I know a lot of this wisdom is currently being channeled through Grow Remote, really harnessing, I guess, the connection, the community, the opportunities within remote working. So I can't wait to explore this a bit more later on. So welcome. I have to say I'm a huge supporter of all the work you're doing. I guess both within Manabu and Grow Remote, and a big advocate of flexible working myself. So tell us a little bit about your story to date and your focus at the moment.
Okay. Welcome. Welcome everyone, I suppose, who's listening. Thank you to Suzanne for inviting me to be part of this podcast. I think you and I, Suzanne, immediately hit it off, if I'm not reaching too much there, but it feels like you're a kindred spirit when it comes to some of the topics that we're going to be talking about today. Just by way of introduction, I guess I wear different hats. I guess today we're going to be talking a little bit initially about remote working, which I'm really excited about and a passionate advocate for, and all the bits therein. And as you mentioned in your introduction, and thank you for that, I'm the chapter lead, which means I'm a volunteer. Essentially a volunteer with Grow Remote in the County Down chapter, and we'll get into a bit more about what those activities look like and that responsibility. Over and above that, I also do have a day job. I've got my own business, Manabu Learning, as you mentioned, and I guess what we try to do there is, well, we're trying to revolutionize workplace training, and we're trying to do that via digital games and simulations. We believe that by immersing people within the situations that they want to get better at, then we can make some real progress. So we've got a whole host of things that we use and tools and games and things that we have to deliver that work. Over and above that, I think it kind of, and where the two roads meet, and perhaps this is a useful way to begin. For me, starting this business, if it's helpful to you, Suzanne, for my introduction, for me, starting this business, tell you a quick story. I used to work in telecommunications, as you mentioned. I was there for 8 years, but I think that the longer I was there, the more I realized that a lot of the people that I worked with were what I would describe as an underserved population as regards their training and development opportunities. And inevitably, I guess, that then had an impact on how their career developed, how they felt about their career, how they felt about their employer, dare I say it. And there was a general sense of where am I going with this thing? And when I started looking into it, Suzanne, one of the biggest statistics when it comes to millennials, that pejorative term, because I'm millennial myself. When it comes to millennials, the thing they look for in terms of investment isn't just money, it's training and development opportunities. It consistently comes up in the Deloitte employment survey every single year. So I was like, well, maybe this isn't just happening in the company I work with. Maybe there's other populations of people around there that are equally underserved and could benefit from innovative methods, from people taking an interest in them and their needs, and providing some of those training and development opportunities. As I say, where this takes us to, though, and I guess where the remote work aspect comes into it, is that whenever I started the business, which was on the 1st of March 2020, all 17th of March 2020 is a day that will I guess all of us will never forget. But of course, lockdown came in, and if you're thinking about starting the conventional training and development business or learning development business, training company, whatever, usually it would be fair to say that usually people meet up and they meet in person. So therefore, I wasn't able to do that with the restrictions. So I thought I'd give it a go online. And what I started doing then was trying to serve people and companies that and organizations that were forced to work remotely due to some of the restrictions within lockdown. But as time moved on, and I got to know my clients a little bit better, got to know the people as well a little bit better, one thing I realized was that never mind people that I used to work with being underserved with regards to their training and development opportunities, remote workers, even less served in terms of things, whether it's like the great work you do in terms of providing facilities and places and spaces for people to meet and work together and collaborate. But even in terms of some of the things that I've mentioned there, in terms of helping them consider what development opportunities they're getting. So I thought, well, maybe actually the niche here isn't just people who feel like this. Maybe it's people who feel like this, but they're also remote workers. And increasingly, when I started talking to people and the workers themselves, the likely participants on courses that we would run, and then the companies, it emerged that was something that was really missing. There was a real missing piece in terms of the how could you describe it? The offering in the marketplace at the moment, because it continues to now, is, I would say, extremely limited when it comes to specializing on online remote working type interventions with people. So I thought, well, maybe I could do that. And the real joy I think in my work is that not only do I get to use very quite modern methods in terms of using games and simulations, and they work really well online, I should say. But not only that, but I get to work with people from across the world. So no longer is it someone that was living in Warren Point maybe, and they just are working at home, and they're choosing to do that instead of working in the office. But there could be a company there that is really leaning into remote work and benefiting from the skill set of people from Singapore, from Kenya, from Sweden, from the US, from Ireland and the UK. And that's been one of the real joys, I think, in getting the opportunity to do that. So that's kind of where the two roads, I think, converge a little bit for me in terms of what my commercial business is. But then also, I'm really interested in this world of remote work. And maybe just to take it up to now and where I am, because I'm speaking to you today from my office in East Belfast. And I feel sometimes, every time I say that, Suzanne, I feel like a little bit of a hypocrite when it comes to being remote work. But I'm part of the problem. I'm the person coming to Belfast to work because I live in Saintfield in County Down. And the reason for that, and I tell a story to people sometimes, whenever I was keen to move out of my spare bedroom because I wanted all the great things that you would offer at the Hub in Newry in terms of collaboration, meeting other people, socializing, the things we all need, I contacted the community centre in Saintfield and I guess pitched them a little bit about setting up a hot desking space or co-working space, just casually, where people could come and work if they lived in the village. And the manager turned around to me and said, "We don't even have Wi-Fi here," which I was alarmed at. Never mind that. So I suppose the provision then for remote work locally is clearly limited, and that would be quite a typical experience, I think, unfortunately, that people would have outside of our big cities. So the work continues. The work continues in that. I'll be very happy to tell you a little bit more about Grow Remote, but perhaps a little bit of a long-winded introduction, Suzanne, but I guess just trying to give you a little bit of a sense of who I am, give your listeners a sense of who I am, where I've come to this from, and
Absolutely,
I guess why I'm speaking to you today.
Yeah, no, I think it really sets the scene, puts it in context. And I guess, you're not a hypocrite working from an office in East Belfast. There's a lot of people who would have to commute a lot further than that. So, it's still in essence remote working to an extent. And I think, again, to put it in context, here in the hub, we have a lot of corporate remote workers who traditionally would have to fly over to England with a UK employer. They're still working in an office here, but they've really cut down that commute, the need for the commutes. But just through, I guess, compliance tax reasons, they have to work from the UK IP address. So no, it really works very well, and there's so many benefits in terms of the connections, that sense of belonging
Mhm.
as well as
Yeah.
the unnecessary commutes. So yeah, moving on, tell us a little bit more about Grow Remote and how that works. What's its ethos?
Brilliant. Yeah, I'd love to. So Grow Remote, in a nutshell, Suzanne, is about making remote work for everyone. And that's for employers trying to get remote to work for those people and making sure that people feel like they can be productive as part of an organization, but also for individuals, for people, for members of Grow Remote, people that might be trying to access different types of work and are maybe limited in terms of their opportunities because of where they live. Usually, if you consider the island of Ireland, where we're Belfast is obviously on the east coast, Dublin, same. But like you've rightly said, I also know people that regularly commute from Galway to Dublin every day, and this is not a sustainable situation when we consider everything that comes with that, the environment, people's mental health, how we consider access to opportunity, everything. And what Grow Remote has been trying to do, and this isn't just a COVID phenomenon, by the way, this predates it. What they've been trying to do for a number of years has been trying to really put the remote work agenda on the table. They've been very successful. I'll talk a little bit about the outputs of what they do in a moment, but they've been quite successful, I would say, in terms of their brand and profile in the Republic of Ireland, because in the Republic of Ireland, there is more, it's a fact to say, there is more of a national concern with this issue of remote work because of some of the reasons I mentioned, because it's quite a Dublin-centric country in the way that many islands are, I suppose, in terms of their capital city. But there needs to be a change in that in terms of trying to get people out of Dublin because of housing shortages, water, whatever it is. So
Sorry, just jumping on. I mean, there has
Please.
actually been quite a lot of intervention at a national level, hasn't there, with remote working?
There
through,
is.
The likes of connected hubs, government intervention. There has been funding, so there's a lot of collaboration happening there. But I guess it just needs to be scaled up and then rolled out further.
I agree. No, I think it's and I applaud all of that work. I think that work's fantastic. And I'm saying it with a jealous eye, by the way, from standing at Belfast and maybe not having the same profile. But that would just put that into where they are. So if you haven't heard of Grow Remote as an organization, I would encourage you to check them out. Check out their website and some of their activities, because like Suzanne, you rightly say, the Connected Hubs network in particular is really exciting. And to see some of the places that are going on around the West Coast and that Atlantic coast, around Donegal, Galway, Sligo, Kerry, I think is amazing. So I think that works really, really exciting. Just in terms of what Grow Remote is, to put a point on it, there's really, I would say, probably three different outputs to the work they do. And the first one would be trying to involve people within, well, I'll start that again, trying to encourage people to participate in their local communities by joining a local chapter. So it's to join Grow Remote County Down, it's totally free. We put on monthly events, which have ranged from a walk in the park to meeting up in a pub and a cafe. And then recently we held a successful co-working day in Maidenmore in Kilkeel, which was really exciting. And people bought tickets for that, and we came along and worked together. So we had a kind of a pop-up hub Newry, really, didn't we, Suzanne, for the day, which was great. So there's different outputs to what happens locally within Grow Remote. At a corporate level, which would be like, what are they doing as an organization? Because they would have paid members of staff and different people that would be involved. A couple of things. The first would be that if you go onto their website, there is a remote work jobs board on their website. So if you're someone that's interested in trying to work remotely, maybe you're trying to get a new remote role, their website's a great place to go and search for some of those opportunities, because they would have people on that as part of their, I guess, employer base, or people that are interested, like say PayPal, Sage, who else? I think QuickBooks is on there. Lots of
Shopify's on
tech.
there.
Shopify's on there, yeah. So lots of big tech companies. And you can get actually, it's not just technology roles, not just software development roles either. There's lots of different types of roles that you can get and work remotely on. So that would be the second thing. The third thing, which I have to mention, is the conference that's coming up in Portlaoise on the 8th and 9th of June, which is trying to, I guess, bring together both of those elements and celebrate remote work around Ireland. So trying to bring together people from the local hubs, the likes of County Down, but also Kerry, Cork, Westmeath, whatever, trying to bring those people together with some of the people that would be really, I guess, embedded and committed to remote work, whether it's people from the public sector, particularly in the Republic of Ireland, but also some of those private sector organizations that we mentioned. So those would kind of be the three things that they do. And I think the vision of it is so exciting about how they're basically trying to enable people to work, as we've said, but also live and participate in their local community. And I think that those 2 points are sometimes missed, but clearly, if you can keep people in a local area, when we consider a lot of the romantic ideas that you would see around regenerating seaside towns and like being a good neighbor, all these kind of ideals that people have, well, remote work can contribute to a lot of that.
Yeah.
So
No,
I think there's,
completely agree
yeah,
with that.
yeah,
I think,
yeah.
I mean, I was in London the other day at the Flexa conference, and a lot of what we were talking about there was very much focused on the whole community and what it brings, what remote flexible working brings to the local
Yeah.
community in terms of the economy, the footfall, the skills. But there was a figure touted around and a report lately that the average remote worker can spend up to £9-10 a day in the local area. So that's just one worker, and potentially bring jobs, investment. You know, there's a huge
Well,
potential there. But for me, I think the whole thing is the piece around education and advocating for the benefits and the options and the choices that it can bring, both, as you say, to communities who don't necessarily, maybe they're not aware of what their options are with remote working, but also to the employer, the benefits it can bring them as a business and to their employees.
Yeah, and I think if you wouldn't mind, I would just like to define that as well, because I would say, and I don't know, maybe this is a little bit controversial, but we don't mind a bit of controversy now and again, Suzanne.
Absolutely not, no.
It's probably good for the old algorithm for these
Yeah,
podcasts.
yeah.
But look, I think remote working, sadly, has, particularly in the United Kingdom, has become part of this culture war. I'm doing quotation marks, culture war, where you would see a lot of stuff, particularly in the right wing media, around how remote workers are seen to be lazy, not as committed, part of a wider conversation around other social issues, and it kind of put into that bracket. And I think that's a real shame, because I think what some of the things that remote work does offer, when you really look into it, I think would really appeal to some of the people writing that copy, actually, that we've mentioned. And the one thing I just wanted to say, though, about defining it, and I think this is important, remote work doesn't automatically mean work from home either. And I think it's really important to say that remote work just means that you're working remotely. It means you're not in your physical office space of like in the traditional sense. It could mean working from home perhaps a day a week, but it could also mean a couple of days a week going to somewhere like the Hub in Uri.
Yeah.
It could also mean that, where for me, and sharing a bit of my story, one of the reasons why I wanted to move out of my spare bedroom, Suzanne, was because I felt like it was productive enough. You know, I felt like I was getting work done and I was building my business. But like, I was going stir crazy, let me tell you. Like, and you know, I found myself going to the shop just to talk to somebody because my partner would be out at work. So I think we do need that kind of social interaction, but that shouldn't then mean that we all have to get in our cars at 7:30 in the morning and sit in an hour of traffic each way. I don't think it's a binary choice between working from home or that. I
No,
think
I
that,
don't either.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think there's that whole hub and spoke model, the whole 15-minute city, because there are, certainly over here in Northern Ireland, there's more and more of these hubs, for example, opening up in more rural or smaller town areas.
Brilliant.
So
Yeah.
there are those options now, but I think it's just getting that message out there and helping people define what is a balanced working life for them. What do they really need?
Yeah.
Under asking those deeper questions and getting them to reflect what are their underlying requirements in terms of their job functions, their personality types, what environments do they function best in. I think there's a whole host of questions there that need to be asked before you really find that best working environment or the best balance, how you want to work. So, for example, you might be doing writing one day. Are you going to function best at home for that? Or would you prefer more of a creative space? There's different options out there.
No, I agree, and you're right. You're very much on trend in respect to like these ideas about deep work, for example. Like when do we do our best in that? And quite often I would hear people, by the way, like friends or people within my network, and they would talk about if they had something where they had to do a lot of thinking, they might even be an employed person. They do it at the weekend or in the evenings because when they're at work, when they're contracted to be there, they don't get the time because they're constantly their doors knocking. People are looking for them, and they find it really hard to actually get that headspace. So I think you're totally right. I think for different types, never mind different types of people, even different types of tasks that you have to do within your work, some of which are going to require uh, peace and quiet,
Yeah.
some of which do need maybe collaboration, and to be there in person. So I think this kind of idea that there's a choice between working from home or working in the office, and it's a very blunt instrument. We need to try and consider what do people need. And I think actually when you invite people to contribute to that conversation, they will
They
tell you.
do. They are telling you more and more. And it's on the radio. For example, James Reed was on BBC Radio 4 this morning talking
Yep.
about the statutory right for employees to ask for flexible working and how that's going to be very much evolving and changing going forward. But I think it comes back to the employer a lot of the time and recognizing how we can move things forward. To date, I think the last few years, it's definitely been Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Most people are now back in the office. It's the Monday and Friday that has to be worked on. How can you ask people to come into the office if they can do that very same job, excuse me, from home? So it's almost earning the right to ask your employees to commute in. So I think a lot of the time there's this problem with staff attraction, retention, and that can be part of it. Certainly the Gen Z, why should they have to commute in when they recognize the value of the technology? They are actually very good at interacting in the communications remotely. So it's very much up to the employer, I think, going forward to work with their workforce and how they can figure this out together in an ideal world.
There's like so much going on for me. Like talk about triggered, but like there's so much going on for me when you're saying that. For the first point, I think that you're people don't know what to do. I think they want people don't know what to do. They don't know they want better performance. So their way to deal with that, I'm talking about, decision makers in organizations. So they want to say, well, I'd rather be looking at people and at least to know they're there. But there was such a huge issue with presenteeism even prior to COVID and the UK productivity crisis, everything, and this was something which predated this kind of remote work conversation. So there's an ongoing issue with that, for one. The second thing I would say is that you're talking about use and the ability to use technology. I think that's fair, and before I moved to Saintfield and I was living with my folks when I set up my business, and I love her to bits, but my mum would not have been someone that was enjoyed Zoom calls and find it stressful in terms of setting them up and everything else, and she preferred just being in the office. But she was something that was close to retiring at that point, so again, she wouldn't have had maybe the will to change in that way. But the point is, I suppose, that people like my mum, people my mum's age, are the ones making these decisions about what they think is best for the workforce. The over 40s really are making decisions about these things. And unfortunately, I think we're yet to cross the bridge on these types of conversations that you're advocating for, which I think are absolutely on the money, about where do people do their best work? Where can we get the most output from people? What way does that need to be organized? And have a grown-up conversation about that, rather than like when the school bell rings or 5 to 5, we're all packing up our school bags to get run for the car. I think that I guess the reality is that most of the people that are making those decisions about where our work is going to be done are people, are older people, which will have been used. I'm trying to be polite here, but will have been used to working in a certain way, which basically meant coming into the office. So I think that those are the challenges, but that's going to change, I guess.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what Grow Remote are doing, I mean, they have that whole that side of their organization where they're working directly with employers and helping that whole remit, pushing that forward.
Yeah, I think so. And sorry, it was one other thing I just wanted to say. I think, and again, you made a really good point about the markets. Like anything, the market will decide and will tell us. The market here, in terms of what are people concerned about, what are my clients concerned about when I speak to them, it is about trying to attract more talent, trying to retain talent. You know, if you're someone that is not getting aboard with one of these initiatives around remote work, then the challenge you're going to have is that people will vote with their feet. And increasingly, we see that particularly millennials, but even more so that Gen Z, that generation below them, people in the 20s, they will do that. They will vote with their feet and they'll say, well, I'll go work for somebody that does offer me these things. And I think as well, because these things are becoming, and we're hopefully going to see this become more of a right for people to ask for these things, then that's only going to add to that as well. Yeah. So I think we're moving in the right direction, albeit with some of those challenges that we have. But I think Suzanne, that is why it's so important, so important to keep the conversation going about this stuff. Whether it's you doing the hub in Uri and being an ambassador for this type of work, or me organising events around County Down, I think we really need to keep doing this. I think we do, to keep the conversation going and keep pushing the envelope, turning the dial, whatever.
But no, I completely get that. And I think the other thing about the generations coming through now is they're very much more aware. You know, they have a lot of aspirations. They like working with people, very, very bright. And I think they're actually quite adept in terms of coaching and mentoring. They want to be working with the different generations. You know, so the likes of the work you're doing with Manabu, they're probably, I suspect, correct me if I'm wrong, but I suspect there's quite a lot of that generation that you would be working with going forward.
Like 90% of our customer base, I think, like, are people that take part in our courses are my age or younger. I would say it'd be fair to say. I don't know. I think maybe the methods, they are of course universal. Anyone can take part, but I would say that the methods probably appeal more to people of a younger generation because they're more accustomed to them. But no, you're right. But I don't think it's just the methods. I think it's the actual concept of, we want these opportunities, give them to us. So the employers are coming searching for the things that we offer. So again, I guess the market will dictate that.
That was actually my next question, is in terms of your clients for Manabu, how do you approach that? Is it the employers coming to you or the employees?
It's always the employers. Obviously, like with any sales process, you're trying to reach decision makers and trying to get people to do things. But a lot of the work that I would get is by influencing, in an organization. So what I mean by that is I might know somebody, or I might get to know somebody at an event or whatever that works in a place. And they wouldn't be the decision maker, but they might work in L&D, they might work in learning development, and they may be in a position to influence some of the decisions that go on. So part of it is that you're trying to reach individual buyers, I suppose, within an organization, but then there's also those other people that work there. Your question though about participants themselves, I think is a really interesting one, because I got a piece of work there which came in from a company in California. Okay. And I was like, they booked a call into my diary to talk about it. And it was all fine. And I had asked them, I was like, how did you find out about us? I mean, like, and this, by the way, I was working at home at this point. I wasn't even in an office. Like, so this was a totally different thing. And she said, "Oh, one of the new members of my team took part in one of your courses with her previous company, and she was from India, and now she's working for this new company who contacted me. So it was almost like the people taking part in the courses were becoming advocates for the work we did as well. So that was kind of, I was like, I had to step back and go, oh my goodness.
Fantastic.
And you get this like realization where like, whoa, every one of these people here could be a customer, so we need to make sure we're doing well. But I just think, what does that speak to? Like, there's an organization that's based in California that has employees in the UK and Ireland. They have a Dublin site as well, and people in India and Pakistan. And they are able to deliver really high quality training and development opportunities remotely and do it really well, execute really well. And I think that's quite exciting for me. I would think it would be fair to say that I'm talking about remote workers as being a bit of a niche. I would niche that even further. It would also be fair to say that like primarily the inquiries that we would get would be people working in technology in the tech sector. And I think it's just because where we are at the moment, they're more inclined to offer remote work opportunities. So they're more likely to have a remote working population versus maybe someone who's working in construction or something else where people may have to go to a site or go to an office, and we maybe wouldn't be the right fit for somebody like that. Whereas these people, there's more of a gap, these types of organizations. So yeah, I guess like overall, you're trying to reach decision makers, but when you can't do that, try to influence, and you try to make sure that the work you are doing is of such good quality that people go away and they want to talk about it.
Good news story there. So William, just wary of time there, wrapping up.
Okay.
Cool. Give me 2 or 3, I guess, highlights or key points that you'd like to move things forward, or messaging that you'd like to see moving forward in terms of remote working.
2 or 3 things around messaging of remote working. First one is, if you're a decision maker or you're someone who's in the position to influence at either in a company or you work in the public sector and you're involved in policy decisions, I'd really encourage you to go and check out co-working hubs, and no better place to go and check out than the hub in Newry to see some of the work that is going on and the real benefit that those types of places bring to a local community. So get yourself down there to one of those places and see what it's all about before you make up your mind. I think that's the first one. So that would be speaking to those people. I think the second one, which is if someone is listening to this podcast that is someone that is working from home, then I'd really encourage you to check out some of the stuff that Go Remote does. Go Remote isn't just an all Ireland organization. They have a presence, I think, in 43 different countries. So go and check out growremote.ie, and you might be able to find a local chapter in your area where you can go and meet up on a regular basis with other remote workers and like-minded people. So that would be another call to action, and encourage you to do that. And I think the final thing is probably just even thinking about ourselves. I know this is about productivity, and that's what we're talking about today. But the thing about productivity and what we all learn is that just notice, if you do one thing today, notice when you are most productive. What are the conditions around that? Do you need to exercise in the morning? Do you need to do that in the evening? How are you setting up your day? And try and have a think about, I guess, what's going to make you most productive, and remember to be kind to yourself in that respect as well, because we can never be 100%. That's for sure.
And I think notice your energy levels in different areas that you're working in, or just generally throughout the day as well.
Yeah.
Good points. William, thank you so much. Some really good news stories. I think the future is bright for flex and remote. There's still a long way to go, but we're on the right trajectory now.
Great. Thanks, Suzanne.
Thank you, William.
Thanks for listening. You can find more information in the show notes or on our website, thehubnewry.com. While you're there, why not join our mailing list so we can keep you in the know about everything we're up to? And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen so you don't miss an episode. Powering Productivity is presented by me, Suzanne Murdoch. It's produced by Emily Crosby Media.